Well, Bond fans, I really hate to be the one to break this news to you, but it looks like we're going to have to wait possibly another 6 months before we see No Time to Die. Yeah, it's getting delayed to April of 2021. So let's break down what that could possibly mean for the franchise and what it really means for the whole theatrical marketplace as a whole. Our thoughts coming up.
Did you rub my land?
1,000 generations to the Yuna.
Here we go.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome to FilmSpeak, where the conversation continues, I guess, before the credits in this case. Usually it's after the credits, but it's going to continue to be before the credits until we eventually get Bond 25. But anyways, I'm of course your host, Griffin, and here at FilmSpeak, we're massive James Bond fans, and so we obviously like to talk about the news as it drops, even when it's really disheartening, such as this, but we also cover other topics in the world of film and entertainment. We offer you more insights, analysis, and interviews behind the entertainment you love. So if that's something that you're into, you're definitely in the right place. Consider subscribing to the channel. So yes, unfortunately, I hate to be the one to say this, but we are going to have to wait to see No Time to Die, which should really just be titled More Time to Die. And here to break it down with me is the one and only Sean Chandler from Sean Chandler Talks About.
Hey.
He specifically got a good pump in before the stream because he had to give you all something, because all we're going to be doing is giving you bad news, and so he is going to be the good news here.
That is true. You told me about an hour ago we were going to go live, and I was like, I'm going to work out just so I can look extra pumped, just like Daniel Craig coming out of the ocean in Casino Royale. That was my plan. But then Griffin wouldn't let me take my shirt off for the video, so...
Well, that's... If we look back at the text... If we look back at the text, you'll see that I required a shirtless Sean and a Speedo Sean, so that's not quite the case here. But yeah, guys, so we're going to be talking about this delay here for a little bit, so be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. So let's just break down what the heck happened here, because I think that's going to be... important in order to understand what's going on here. So here I have the Variety article pulled up for you. Obviously, they also tweeted out about it on the official James Bond Twitter account, but we're going to be going off of this Variety article. So the article says that No Time to Die, the latest James Bond installment, will be postponed until next year. The filmmakers have announced, and it's interesting because it was supposed to come out earlier this year, April of 2020. Obviously, because of the pandemic that was going on, the producers felt it was the best option to push it back to November of this year, hoping that things would be in a better place. But I think due to the how Tenet performed at the box office, I think that was really causing everyone to rethink whether or not their film should be coming out. And the official statement here from Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson on the official Bond Twitter account reads as the following. MGM, Universal, and Bond producers Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli today announced that the release of No Time to Die, the 25th film in the James Bond series, will be delayed until the 2nd of April in order to be... I'm sorry, the 2nd. I said the 21st earlier. The 2nd of April in order to be seen by a worldwide theatrical audience. The filmmakers said in a statement, "We understand the delay will be disappointing for our fans, but we now look forward to sharing No Time to Die next year." So if you've been paying attention, this isn't really something new that's been going on. Films have been getting delayed all year, but especially following the lackluster performance of Tenet at the box office, more movies have been saying, you know what, we're not even going to risk it. We're going to jump ship and move into 2021, where we hopefully will be able to do something here. The thing that's interesting about this is that, one, the film is releasing on April 2nd of 2021, and that also happened to be the same weekend and release date that Fast and Furious F9 was coming out. Now, since this original news broke, F9 has since moved to a date later in May, I believe. So there's about a month in between the releases, which makes sense because I don't know why Universal would want to stack two of their films on top of each other. Sean, we'll obviously get into the nitty gritty here, but I just want to get your overall take on this, especially given the fact that the marketing was really starting to hit its stride. Its second marketing campaign was really starting to hit its stride.
That's the thing that makes this surprising to me. In the general sense, it's not remotely surprising because everything's getting delayed. We just had, over the last 2 weeks, a bunch of gigantic delays. To the extent that we even said last week, this is kind of one of the few things that's left on the calendar for the entire year. Right. And since we said that a week ago, they've put out additional marketing materials. Wasn't it like a music video dropped a day or two ago?
Yesterday. Literally yesterday. Brody and I were just talking about the music video in preparation for, obviously the film's supposed to come out. I even got junket invites, the second wave of junket invites for the film, and was supposed to see it towards the end of October. Like, it's just really very, very puzzling why they would,
That's the stuff that, like, based off of the world in general and what the industry is doing, it's not surprising. But because of what you just said, junket invites, putting out the music video, like they delayed. I mean, didn't the song come out? It came out back in March, didn't it?
It was either March or February.
And so obviously they've been sitting on the music video until right before release as one more piece of the marketing campaign. And then they put it out. And the next day, they delay 6 months. So it feels a little bit like right hand's not talking to the left hand a little bit. And that's the piece that's surprising. So me and you are trying to do these Bond rankings leading up to this movie. And just 2 days ago, we said on my podcast, we're going to kick them back up in the very near future. We have been texting about when, like, as soon as we got off the live stream, like, hey, man, I don't think we'll record this week, but we'll record next week. That's what we talked about based off of this information, like what they had been doing with marketing stuff. And so that's why this feels kind of out of the blue. But it's not the craziest thing. I mean, what was it last year that Dark Phoenix, they dropped the trailer and then the next day delayed it. So, I mean, that's, it's not like studios they're kind of known for not communicating very well with themselves, but that's the piece to me that makes it so weird.
I agree with you. Like, do I understand why this film was delayed? Yes. Am I baffled that this decision wasn't made sooner? 100%. Listen, Eon is sort of proving themselves, and I don't know if this is an Eon decision or whether this is an MGM or Universal decision. There are a lot of studios at play here. I have to assume that it is an Eon decision ultimately, as they're the owners of the Bond rights and the franchise and all that stuff like that. They're great when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to story. They are a filmmaker's production studio. Like, people love working with Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson because they do the exact opposite of what some of the other major studios do, like maybe like a Disney or a Warner Brothers or something like that. They are very open to collaboration and they enjoy it. And I think it's one of the reasons why they've excelled as producers for as long as they have. When it comes to the business side of things, I think they have continuously kind of proven again and again that is their weak spot. And this is just another example in the long line of examples that sort of, makes a case for it. Why would you start a second marketing campaign knowing that you're going to further put this film into the hole than it already is, only to pull the rug out from everyone halfway through the marketing campaign?
Yeah.
You're not only screwing over yourselves, but like someone like Bill. Now, granted, I'm sure Billie Eilish could care less about what's going on, but like, now you're going to have to redo everything with her. And she's getting the shaft here for this song that was supposedly going to be a real contender for Best Original Song at the Oscars. Hell, she probably was in a great position to win it.
Right.
And now...
Not exactly a lot of competition this year, so the one that makes it easy to win.
Right. And I mean, and Bond films traditionally do very well in that category, but like, now delaying it to 2021 doesn't even count anymore.
Right.
You know, there's a whole bunch of logistics there. Then on top of the fact that like all of their marketing partners, what does this mean with them? I mean, I'm sure they had to have like discussed it with their partners before pulling the plug on this whole thing. But at some point, you just got to wonder, was it all worth it to start up a second marketing campaign knowing what Tenet did at the box office and knowing how your film was probably going to perform at the international market, in the international marketplace? Why was this decision not made sooner? I mean, is it surprising? No. What's shocking is the bafflingly poor decision-making here, delayed and poor decision-making here. That's what I don't understand.
Right. That's the key piece. I saw some people on Twitter like, are people really shocked about this? This is what they should have done months ago. It's like, well, right. No one is shocked that a movie got delayed in 2020. Anybody being shocked a movie got delayed in 2020 needs to go get their head examined. Like, this is, like, that's what happens this year. It's all that other stuff. It's all the other evidence of the path that they were on. And there hasn't been like a new piece of information that dropped or something like that. There hasn't been like a gigantic shift that would make it clear exactly why this happened. There's like been slight upticks and things like that. Obviously, the big piece of person that contracted it last night, but that's not global like box office stuff that would explain why they would make this decision today versus a week ago. And that's the side to it that's just really, you're scratching your head being like, what's your plan for marketing next year? Like, I don't
they're screwed. They're screwed. You can't drum up excitement in waves twice and then delay it again and expect to get the returns that you were originally going to get. People are burnt. They're tired of it. Like
they don't believe you. They don't believe you.
Exactly. That's the thing. Now, I understand that New Mutants released during a global pandemic.
Sure.
And that film was probably never going to do well there. But you have to wonder how much of it was like people were just kind of, oh, is it actually happening this time?
Exactly.
Oh,
I saw so many comments like that. So many.
So when you have that level of skepticism associated with your project, it doesn't matter what marketing material you're putting out. People aren't going to believe you until it eventually hits theaters. My biggest thing with Eon is like, it's not the fact that they decided to delay. It's the fact that they couldn't decide until it was too late. Yeah. You either make the decision to delay the film before you start your second marketing campaign, or you stick to your guns and just ride it out. Yep. Which, if we're being honest, I think is probably what they should have done, because because now we're going to start to see how this is going to affect theaters going forward. With Bond out of the way, theaters, I honestly don't even know if they're going to be around next year. And that's a very real conversation that people in the industry are having right now. There are filmmakers and creatives lobbying to Congress to bail out the movie theater industry. That's how desperately this film needed to come out in order to assist theaters. Clearly, Tenet didn't cut it, and I understand why. I mean, it's a Chris Nolan movie. It's a little more niche. But also, I mean, you also have to think about how, you know, were people a little skeptical about going back? Like, how much of that contributed to it? I don't know. There's so many things going on, but I mean, to put it simply, theaters might not be around next year. They might not be around next year to play No Time to Die. So,
right, you know, and I think that's the piece to it. That's the trickle down of some of this, or some of the conversations I've had with people. They've been like, why did they even put Tenet out? Like, they had to know that it wouldn't make as much money this year as it would next year. It's like, right, but it's a lot more complicated than that.
Right.
You're talking about an industry, and you're also talking about someone has to test the waters. Someone has to be brave enough to put their movie out there knowing it won't make as much money, but it'll start the process of kickstarting this engine. And so Tenet, they put it out there. It way underperformed, but entirely in a way that made sense in light of the world. Right. And then but that it scared everybody else off, in which case It's a movie that also only so many people would be interested in. It's a movie that, while it's a high-profile director, it's a little bit inaccessible because it is so heady.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where there's a side to it. And, there's no one movie that would pull everybody in. And so you kind of need a series of movies over a series of months to kind of get everybody to go back just a little bit to feel comfortable.
Right. And in the perfect 3-film lineup probably would have been like Tenet. You get the more like, I guess, people who enjoy that high concept stuff in No Time to Die. It's like an action movie. It's Daniel Craig. It's James Bond. People know the franchise. Wonder Woman 1984. You get the comic book people in there.
To get the family.
Yeah, it's like I understand delaying a lot of this stuff, but also like you have to release films in order for people to go back to the theater. There's
part of the habit, part of the routine.
Yeah.
Like I'm as a guy that goes to movies all the time, I'm starting to feel like do I want to go out? And it's just my behavior is changing in light of all of this.
Yeah.
And if that's me as a guy that went to the theater 100 times last year, 75 times last year, I'm feeling that. How much is the average person even more so like, do I want to go to the theater? And you have to worry about that behavior. And theaters are businesses. They have to have revenue. And if if you're getting to the point in time to where there's no big releases for a full year, how many businesses can stay in business with a year without any real revenue?
Right. And whatever movie was going to be the first one to release obviously was going to underperform. It just so happened that was Tenet. I think in some cases I understand studios moving films back and shifting stuff around because there are more projects. There are projects that are a little riskier and you don't want to necessarily play them yet, but go with your surefire hits, something like Bond, something like Black Widow, something like Wonder Woman. Those movies, people will go see those films. The fact that Black Widow is delayed a year is ridiculous. They should be doing a split release with the premium access on Disney Plus and a theatrical run. They should probably do the same thing with Wonder Woman 1984. I just don't. And look, I understand that there was a lot of money dumped into these projects, so these studios want to make that money back. But they also have to realize that they're living in a situation where that's not necessarily possible right now. They have to be willing to take the risk and leave their films in theaters for prolonged periods of time. Because otherwise, how are you going to get back to this sense of people going to the theaters? You can't just delay everything forever. And VOD, we have no idea what it's doing. We don't know if it's working, if it's not. I mean, like just today, Warner Brothers announced that Robert Zemeckis' The Witches is going to be on HBO Max, and so I'll be curious to see how that plays for them. But I mean, like, I don't know. It just feels like they're not trying to remedy the situation, and so they're stuck in this state of limbo, and they don't know what to do.
Right, and it's even kind of one of those ones of if people, I think if you go once back to the theater, you kind of just get over that hurdle. You get there and you realize, oh, it's not the boogeyman. You also realize there's not very many people there. I've gone to 4 movies now, and 3 of those were opening night, opening showing, first showing for these new releases that were somewhat large in scheme of the year 2020, and none of them had anything close to a full crowd or anything like that. I went to go see Tenet yesterday, and we pulled in the parking lot, and there was just no cars there. Like it couldn't have been more than just the staff in the parking lot. And then we went in, and there's nobody there. And just even on that side, when people go, they'll see that and they'll go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Like actually, like literally, what happened? I go to Cinemark. That's the big chain around here. So I have the Cinemark program. So I have like 6 months of credits saved up for paying for my deal. And we didn't even use our credits. We have a deal to where you get 20% off our concessions. We're like, they need the 20% more than we do. Like looking around, they're losing money just by being open right now. And that was like literally my thought. I'll pay 20% more on everything just to help the theater out.
Yeah.
Because there's not people there. And Hollywood has to think about that. Like the implications of this and find things to put out. The chains, I don't know if they're still like hardballing about if you put movies on streaming, you can't put them on here. You're not going to play them in our theater.
They're not in a position to be bargaining right now. They got to, yeah.
I mean, that's like Bill and Ted couldn't play at Cinemark because Cinemark won't play movies that are debuting on streaming.
Yeah.
So I went to go see Bill and Ted at like an independent theater, Flicks Brew House, and like Cinemark, you don't have the. Do you have a bunch of money in the bank that I don't like? You're just in a great position that you can go a year doing stuff like that.
Yeah,
you got to be creative here. Talk to the studios and say this is not a long-term thing, but while we're in this, like, let's a gentleman's deal. What can we do to help each other out on this? This seems like common sense. This is unprecedented. So, cut a deal for the current time to survival of everything and for the good of people. That's the world.
That's the thing is the failure to want to adapt to what's going on. Yeah. They think that some of the Band-Aid solution, the studios think that some of the Band-Aid solutions is just dropping stuff on VOD. The smaller projects where they're like, oh, well, we can take a hit on this stuff. You got to give the people something that is enticing. Now, perhaps that was what Disney tried to do with Mulan, and it didn't necessarily play the way they wanted it to. But there's a couple of factors in with that one. One, they announced when it was going to be on Disney Plus for free prior to that, which was a poor decision. Two, there was a lot of controversy and backlash regarding that. And three, I guess the $30 price tag wasn't necessarily something that appealed to a lot of people. So there was a lot of factors there for sure. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. But then Shashank here brings up a good question, which thank you for the super chat. Do you believe people that now getting back to theaters is more of a safety issue or the fact that we need more big tentpole films in this time? I think it's a mixture of both because listen, you're going to always have people who, they don't want to, they may have underlying health conditions. They might not feel safe going to it because they've heard the horror stories of like movie theaters, or they remember movie theaters as they used to be, which is traditionally in America not clean. And that's a gross understatement. Pair that with the fact that there is nothing worth them risking, their health and safety to go to the theater. I mean, yes, there is Tenet out. Obviously, we address the fact that doesn't appeal to the masses. But other than that, I mean, a family isn't going to go rush to the theater to go see New Mutants or Unhinged or something like that, I
mean, my family rushed out to go see Unhinged. I thought my kids would love that one. But beyond that, though, so I've been trying to get my kids to go see Harry Potter because they've been playing Harry Potter. And they are on just gigantic Harry Potter kick. Every night they go to bed listening to the audiobook of the first two Harry Potters. Right. And so I've been wanting to take them, but like my son doesn't want to go because he doesn't want to wear a mask for 2 hours. Actually, in the case of that movie, 3 hours. And like it's a whole bunch of different things. There's people that are afraid. There's people who don't want to wear a mask. There's people that these movies aren't pulling them out. There's people that just don't want to have to go through the whole hassle of everything. There's people that just aren't used to going back out right now. There's just some information lacking. Some people just don't know. They don't know what's open. They don't know what they're going to have to do. Like we know, we've tracking with all this. Some people just don't know. I think there's also the trickle down of the two biggest markets in the U.S. in having most influence for kind of the world in this regard being shut down in California and New York. That has a big trickle down on what information is kind of going out about some of the films. And you put all that together and people just aren't showing up in the theater.
Yeah. It's difficult, but I think it's just kind of like unprecedented and difficult decisions to make. So I understand the hesitation from studios to want to commit to one way or the other. But Papa John here brings up a really good point, which is I felt No Time to Die was positioned to be a great test the waters film like Tenet coming out around the beginning of the holiday season. I agree. One, as opposed to, actually, I think that it was a better film to, get people back because one, it's a franchise people know and enjoy, and they specifically enjoy Daniel Craig's tenure as Bond. People have been waiting for this film. It has been 5 years. 5 years since we last saw him in a movie. That's a whole other conversation that's absolutely ridiculous. But people have been waiting 5 years to see Daniel Craig back in a film. They got all these new characters. Rami Malek. The trailers have been exciting. Yes, it's the beginning of the holiday season. People can, I assume people are getting that cabin fever a little bit. Maybe they want to take a chance and go see a movie, or maybe they could have worked out a deal where they're playing something on drive-ins or in drive-ins. Because now Tenet is playing in drive-ins in New York and L.A. and places like that. And so I don't know, and I just. It is confusing why they decided now, literally a month before the international release, to say, you know what, we're not going to do it. No. Again, poor decision making on Eon's part.
And this, we talked about this. Of every couple of months, you need something to test the waters to see where the market is at. And so this seemed like 2 months later, or I guess it would be 2.5 months later. That's a pretty good jump to see where people are at in all of this. Also, the holidays. And I do think it's probably a more accessible film that has certainly more brand recognition than just saying it's a Nolan film. People know what you are getting with a Daniel Craig Bond film. Marketing, markets it as a very good action film. So it would have a very broad appeal to a lot of people to see what happens, see where people are at. And so that's, as we said at the beginning of this, it's just really surprising that they decided to pull the plug at this point in time after putting out more marketing. It's just so weird that, like, 2 weeks ago, no surprise. I wouldn't fault anyone. I get what you're doing. Yeah. But putting out all this marketing the last 2 weeks and then doing it, weird. That's
where the decision comes into play. Because, like I said, I understand delaying because it's not the right time to or whatever, but it is it's the delayed response in delaying that is baffling here. Mariana from Impression Blend, great to see you in here. Hey, great to see you in here. She brings up a good point here, which is sort of the opposite side of this, which is just like, it's not just about you, it's about the people you live with. I might be okay to see something, but how can I take that risk for my family, especially with people who might have underlying conditions, that's the big, sort of thing here whenever people are deciding to go to the theaters, which is why I think a VOD theatrical run split is what theaters or is what studios should be considering now. Which is honestly, it's hilarious and ironic because that's what Netflix has had to do in order to compete for award season. They've had to play their theater. They play their film in a theater for like 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, and they could continue playing it in that theater, but then it drops on their platform. And I feel like going forward, that is something that these studios really should be considering. And then also Mariana asks, do you think they've spent so much on this film that they just can't afford the risk of a disappointing box office and would rather wait to make more money? I agree with you that I think they've spent too much on the film. But I guess like they probably had a good idea prior to the second marketing campaign, right? Like prior to the marketing campaign, yes, they had one failed campaign, and it probably would have been a good idea to delay to, the next year. Now they're going to have to jumpstart a third marketing campaign. Their second one is in the tank. They have sponsorships that they need to fulfill and stuff like that. And here's the important part: there's no guarantee they're going to make more money because you've already burnt the hype train twice on this, and we have no idea if the state of the world is going to be any better in April of next year. I hope it is. I really hope it is, but we have no idea. And so you take all that into account, and it's like, well, maybe they should have just released it now.
This was implied in what you just said, but to just make sure it's entirely stated,
right? A
third marketing campaign, that's a lot of money. And that's like with a movie like this, the marketing costs basically the production budget because they're trying to sell a ton of tickets. That's why when a movie makes back its production budget, it still needs to make 3 times that amount to actually be profitable because theaters get a cut and then there's the marketing budget.
Right.
So if you have a movie that you did a full marketing campaign, you're weeks away from release. You did almost your full marketing campaign.
Right.
And then
they did that twice because it was the same scenario. It was the same scenario back in March when that was happening.
Exactly. And so that's kind of another piece to put into it. Now, as we said in all of this, there's no easy answers on any of this. It's tough because it's all unprecedented. And there's no good options right now. Do you put the movie out next month when you know it will have very limited box office results? You know you're testing the waters. You're sacrificing your box office to try and get people back to the theaters. Like, you know you're doing that.
Right.
Or you wait till next year and gamble on whether things will be better then, and things will actually be opened up, or are we just going to keep doing more delays? Part of it is even like you look at 2021, all of the 2021 movies are still scheduled for 2021, but plus all of the 2020 blockbusters are just stacked right on top of them.
Yeah.
So if you're me, 2021 looks like it's going to be awesome. Like this year, just
it's great.
It's going to be amazing.
Right.
But at the same time, all those movies start competing with each other. There's only so many seats. There's only so many theaters. And so there's just a lot of complex things to consider with all of this that there's just no good options.
It really is. You're either taking a loss here or you're taking a loss there. I guess it's just more about like how much of a loss are you going to take from each decision you make. And ultimately with this, I mean, we'll have to see. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Eon's sitting on a gold mine and they're just willing to, I don't know, just keep doing these marketing campaigns. But it's disappointing for fans for sure, but it just is a baffling business decision. And here's the other thing. We have the 60th anniversary of James Bond coming up here in a couple of years. And with how this film has gotten delayed, they're not going to have a film.
Why are we going to delay this film until
at this point? They might as well, because and it's sad because they've never missed an anniversary. They've never done it. And now because of what's going on, they're gonna miss one, unfortunately, unless they just get their act together and they start fast tracking this stuff. But I don't know, man. It is it's disappointing news for film fans because of the implications.
Well, since they've already cast their next James Bond.
Yeah. Oh man, that's true. Apparently, Tom Hardy is the next James Bond.
Yeah, speaking of Tom Hardy, this is the day that Venom 2 was supposed to come out. Man, it's so crazy how many of those movies were supposed to come out. It was today. So, yeah. But he's busy prepping for Bond now.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely the case here. But listen, it's disappointing and disheartening for fans of the franchise who have waited and will wait over 5 years to see the conclusion to the Daniel Craig arcs, especially because you know that it's just sitting on a hard drive. It is sitting on a hard drive somewhere under lock and key with Eon. Cary Fukunaga is moved on to other projects now. It's so disappointing. But it's also disappointing for film fans who are waiting for something to bring them back to theaters. And also, with this out of the way, we have no idea if there's going to be any theaters left to save going forward. So I guess, Sean, closing thoughts on this before we wrap up this stream here.
It's just disappointing. These delays kind of, I don't know, overstate this, but they take a little bit of an emotional toll on me when there's these big delays. The little ones didn't, but like last week when Disney pushed everything back and then followed by this one, it was just kind of feel this sense of like, man, is it ever going to get back to normal? Because especially in our case, movies are our life.
Right.
And it's just disappointing in that regard. Not surprising, not shocking, just disappointing. And then likewise, there's some genuine fear as to the future of movie theaters. We touched on this just a little bit, but like Martin Scorsese, Clint Eastwood, James Cameron, Christopher Nolan, they are in front of Congress being like, hey, can you help out movie theaters? You don't want this industry to die. What can you do to help them out, to keep them afloat until movies can come out? Because they just can't put out movies right now.
Yeah.
And that's pretty wild. That's where things are at. And that's where people wanted to kind of like, criticize Nolan for wanting to be the savior of movie theaters. I get the idea that there's a certain amount of like pretense and arrogance and like, my movie will save movie theaters. And then there's a side to it of like, no, like movies have to come out for theaters to stay in business.
Yeah.
And that's the side to it of like, if you have a less cynical interpretation of what he was trying to do there, he's like, I'm willing to have my movie not make very much money if it helps keep these things afloat. and does something.
Yeah.
And I think that that's respectable. So I'm not in any way have held any of this against Nolan the way, some people like tried to scoff at him and stuff like that. I think that's kind of, in the year 2020, that's gross.
Well, it is, because I don't think that's just understanding the kind of person he is. I don't think that that's where it was coming from at all. The arrogance factor of it definitely isn't part of it. I don't know. Maybe there will be another filmmaker who kind of stands their ground like him, but also at the same time, not everyone has the leverage he has. So it'll be, I don't know. It'll be really curious to see. But guys, the most important thing is, what do you all think about this this news? No Time to Die getting delayed. Let us know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. How do you think this is going to hurt the James Bond franchise going forward? And then also, what do you think this means for the theatrical industry, the theater going, movie theaters, all this stuff like that? Let us know down in the comment section below. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel so you don't miss out on more update videos like this, movie reviews, and all great entertainment-centric content. We'll keep talking about it as long as we can, if there's entertainment still coming out. Which is actually a really scary thing to think about. But anyways, Sean, thank you for joining me on this stream. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on YouTube. Just look up Sean Chandler. You'll either find a football player or a guy that looks like me and talks about movies. It's the guy that looks like me and is talking about movies. And also on Instagram, it's Sean Talks About.
Yep, and you can find him on Instagram flexing his muscles and wearing the Daniel Craig Speedo, because no one else will be doing that until next April. But guys, you can also like FilmSpeak on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, just search FilmSpeak, and if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, guys, well, thanks for joining in on this stream, and we will catch you next time. Take care.